Hello and thank you for being here. Each video is the result of over 100 hours of work, including in-depth research from reliable sources. So if you enjoy the content and want to support the channel, please consider subscribing, liking the videos, and leaving a comment, even a small one. I hope you'll enjoy the video. Thanks. Insects have always held significant roles in art throughout history. They have been depicted in jewelry, textiles, sculpture, and paintings, where they often carry symbolic meaning. Across cultures, societies from ancient to modern times have drawn inspiration from the shapes and colors of insects, sometimes even using their actual bodies as part of their artistic expressions. In this video, we'll explore how the representation of insects in art has evolved over time and across the world. We'll look at the symbolism behind butterflies, beetles, and dragonflies, and there might even be a few critters with more or less than 6 legs making an appearance, even if they're not technically insects. But just the friendly ones, nothing scary, I promise. In classical antiquity, the ancient Egyptians saw the dung beetle, Scarabaeus sacer, as a form of the sun god. Scarab amulets were placed on mummies, especially on the heart, to assist in the judgment process and guide the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. The scarab beetle in ancient hieroglyphs also symbolized the verbs to become and to transform, representing the sun and renewal. Throughout history, humans have also used insect carcasses in their art. For example, we can mention beetle wing art, which is an ancient decorative technique using the iridescent wing cases of beetles, traditionally practiced in Asia, Africa, and South America. These wings embellish paintings, textiles, and jewelry, with the most prized being the green elytra of Sternocera jewel beetles. In Thailand, they were used to adorn courtly clothing and jewelry. In Christianity, symbolic meanings of insects were quickly codified. For instance, the Bible attributes a negative value to the scorpion, seeing it as a symbol of demonic powers that torment humankind. This image persists through the Middle Ages, where it represents hatred and treachery. The creature can be interpreted as a servant of the devil, and thus temptation, particularly in depictions of hermits praying in the desert, such as Saint Jerome. The scorpion can also sometimes appear on soldiers' banners in representations of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, symbolizing paganism. At the turn of the 16th century, trompe-l'oeil flies began appearing in paintings, both in Italy and Northern Europe. These flies could either be integrated into the image or added as a feigned detail on the canvas. Musca depicta, which means painted fly in Latin, is not the scientific name of a species of fly. It is the fly of painters. And art historian André Chastel coined this term to illustrate his essay, which discusses the use of trompe-l'oeil flies in Renaissance paintings. This inclusion could serve several purposes: as a jest, to highlight the value of even minor creations; as an artistic privilege, to indicate a post-mortem portrait; or to imitate earlier painters. In any case, painting a fly in trompe-l'oeil requires considerable skill and expertise. In a painting by the master of Frankfurt, he and his young wife are depicted with 2 trompe-l'oeil flies crawling on the canvas. These flies may symbolize death and decay, which will one day come for them. In the Bible, the 2nd book of Kings mentions the god Baal-zebub, a name that literally means the Lord of the Flies, an ancient Syrian deity ruling over swarms of flies and associated with destruction and decay. That's where the name Beelzebub comes from, one of the many titles of the devil. Furthermore, as flies are constantly buzzing and hovering, they evoke the idea of torment and suffering, linking them to the passion of Jesus Christ. Flies swarm and settle on filth and decay. They plague both humans and animals without bringing any benefit. Hieronymus Bosch's paintings almost always represent many fantastical creatures, some of which are inspired by insects. In his Highwayn triptych, the artist depicts in an allegorical and moralizing manner the journey of humanity, prey to vices and earthly temptations. The left panel shows the origin of sins, from the fall of the rebel angels to original sin, leading to the expulsion from paradise. It is worth noting how the painter depicted these angelic beings, who, having disobeyed God, were cast out of heaven and underwent a metamorphosis that ultimately turned them into monstrous hybrid figures, part human and part insect, symbolizing temptations and sins. Despite, or perhaps because, of its fearsome sting, the scorpion, symbol of fatality, death, punishment, and treachery, sometimes takes on the role of healer and protector. In Mesopotamia, the scorpion was a symbol of fertility, and the Egyptians used scorpion-shaped amulets as an attribute and symbol of the healing goddess Selket. In Greece, the scorpion is the instrument of Artemis' revenge over the giant Orion, before both victim and aggressor are then transformed into constellations. In this portrait of Elisabetta Gonzaga painted by Raphael, the scorpion she wears on her forehead is a good luck charm, meant to ward off bad luck and deflect harmful influences. The dung beetle, stag beetle, and horned beetle are often associated with the scarab and began to appear in iconography at the end of the Gothic period. The image of the scarab first appears in illuminated manuscripts of the International Gothic style, which developed in European courts between the late 14th and early 15th centuries. However, it is mainly in Northern European painting of the 15th and 17th centuries that the scarab is depicted, particularly in still lifes or woodland scenes. This study of a stag beetle by Albrecht Dürer, a highly talented naturalistic painter, shows his mastery of representing detail and precision. The stag beetle is given a negative meaning and becomes a symbol of evil and the devil. This is likely due to the fact that, in the collective imagination of Nordic civilizations, the scarab was considered a highly menacing creature at the time, capable of carrying burning embers in its jaws, making it a feared incendiary. In this painting, the beetle about to attack the fish, a symbol of Jesus Christ, represents the battle between good and evil. Grasshoppers occasionally appear in artworks. Seen as symbols of calamity, they are feared for swarming in great numbers, devastating crops, and causing famine. Their image, often associated with locusts, dates back to the story of Moses, where they are one of the 10 plagues of Egypt. Their demonic connotation likely stems from the Book of Revelation, where they are depicted with distinctly diabolical features. However, a passage from Proverbs offers a different perspective, associating grasshoppers with converted pagans. This symbolism is reflected in iconography, where they are sometimes depicted in the hands of the Christ child. In the 17th century, the art genre of vanitas developed in the Netherlands. These Baroque still life paintings are going beyond simply depicting still motionless objects and magnificent flower arrangements. The paintings carry deeper messages, using symbols like skulls, insects, burning candles, hourglasses, and withered flowers to represent the transience of life. At the same time, objects like wine, jewelry, and fine fabrics symbolize wealth and the fulfillment of desires. The fly often appears, sometimes near a butterfly. Through this, the artist seeks to illustrate the struggle between good and evil, or to symbolize salvation and resurrection in contrast to sin, which is represented by various insects such as flies and many insects associated with decay, along with rotten fruit, broken objects, and damaged leaves. However, when painted, these flies also serve as a way for the artist to protect against the possibility of a real fly landing on the artwork, as it was commonly believed that images of insects would ward off the real ones. And sometimes, the artist even simply paints a fly to demonstrate their skill. The image of the butterfly and its extraordinary transformations has always fascinated humans. Its extremely lightweight compared to its size naturally makes it a symbol of the soul. In antiquity, the butterfly soul could symbolize death, but in Christianity, it became a symbol of resurrection and salvation through the successive stages of its life cycle. The caterpillar represents life, the chrysalis symbolizes the tomb, and the delicate winged butterfly embodies the resurrection of the soul. When depicted in the hands of the infant Jesus or the Virgin Mary, it represents the resurrected soul. Bees have enjoyed great esteem since antiquity. In Egypt, honey was said to have been born from the tears of the sun god Ra, while in Greece, it was believed to have been invented by Dionysus and was one of the components of the god's nourishment, along with ambrosia. Bees are attributed with many human qualities, such as courage, chastity, harmony, zeal, and valor. They organize an exemplary society founded on labor. Christian tradition associates them with monastic life, marked by order and dedication to work. In the Christian world, the bee symbolizes both sweetness and mercy due to the gentleness of honey, as well as Christ's suffering, linked to its painful sting. The bee is also the heraldic emblem of the Roman Barberini family and of Napoleon I, who thus exploited the insect's values of order and labor. A word on the snail, now primarily associated with slowness. The spiral shape of its shell evoked an initiatory labyrinth, as well as the idea of cyclical movement and time. It appears after the rain, at dusk, which symbolizes cyclical regeneration, fertility, and rebirth after death. As a quintessential lunar creature, the snail extends and retracts its horns, much like the moon appears and disappears, a sign of death and rebirth. In Christian doctrine, this made it a symbol of Christ's resurrection. In Egyptian hieroglyphs, the snail also represented the evolution of life. The Greek word psyche means both soul and butterfly. which is why Cupid's young Psyche is sometimes depicted with butterfly wings. Her allegorical story inspired popular tales and was a favorite theme among ancient philosophers, who saw in it the beauty of the soul and the promise of eternal happiness in the afterlife. Plato asserted that, like the butterfly, the soul can only flourish by freeing itself from its bodily prison. Italian neoclassical sculptor Antonio Canova portrayed love and Psyche on several occasions. But in this particular sculpture, he depicts them standing. Psyche offers love a butterfly, symbolizing her own soul. Let's now turn to Asia. The insects have been depicted in Far Eastern art in various forms for over 2,000 years, with great attention to detail or in a stylized manner. Japanese artist Ishosai Choki's Catching Fireflies, created around 1795, is a celebrated ukiyo-e woodblock print from Japan's Edo period. The artwork portrays a woman holding a firefly cage, accompanied by a boy chasing the luminous insects near a stream adorned with irises. The theme of insect hunt is commonly seen in paintings and prints, with locusts or crickets. In China and Japan, it was common to keep one of these insects in a cage at home, as they were believed to have the power to attract fortune and happiness through their song. In China and Japan, butterflies and moths are also depicted with great care, often accompanying floral motifs. The silkworm moth is used in sericulture, more commonly known as silkworm farming. Utamaro's prints from the late 18th century illustrate the process of silkworm rearing, from the caterpillar stage to the sale of the cocoons. Graceful and light, the dragonfly shares the symbolism of the butterfly, with the added significance of water. Its presence always adds a touch of poetry. The long rainy summer season and numerous rivers and streams in Eastern Asia provide ideal conditions for dragonflies, which spend the early stages of their life in the water. Over 190 species of dragonflies can be found in Japan, and the dragonfly is a national emblem. Japan was once called Akitsushima, or Dragonfly Island. In Japanese culture, the dragonfly carries many meanings. It symbolizes summer, success, victory, happiness, strength, and courage. It is therefore no surprise to find the dragonfly in many Japanese prints. For example, Hokusai pairs it with the bellflower in his series of great flowers. With its grace and lightness, the butterfly is the emblem of women in Japan, while two butterflies symbolize marital fidelity. Artists often pair flowers with butterflies as a tribute to beauty. In his series of great flowers, Hokusai combines the peony with the butterfly. In the imagination of many civilizations, the spider is seen in a negative light. In Christian tradition, the spider represents the image of the tempter devil, spinning its web to ensnare human souls drawn to various vices. In Ovid's Metamorphoses, the young Arachne is transformed into a spider by Minerva as punishment for her arrogance, having claimed to be a better weaver than the goddess of wisdom and protector of the arts. Weaving, therefore, also evokes the thread of human destiny, a fragile web always on the verge of breaking. Riordan often explored hybrid creatures in his art. In this work, the spider is humanized and depicted in a benevolent manner and invites the viewer to reconsider their prejudices and see beyond appearances. If butterflies are commonly considered as a symbol of freedom, transformation, and life, Vincent van Gogh used them in his works as a symbol of hope. The artist painted his butterflies series in 1889 and 1890, including at least 4 butterflies and 1 moth. To Van Gogh, the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly symbolized people's ability to change. In May 1889, Vincent wrote to his brother Theo, "Yesterday I drew a very large, rather rare night moth there, which is called the death's head, its coloration astonishingly distinguished, black-gray, white shaded, and with glints of carmine or vaguely tending towards olive green. It's very big. To paint it, I would have had to kill it, and that would have been a shame, since the animal was so beautiful." Later, he decided to paint the moth after all, but using his drawing as a reference. Van Gogh referred to it as a death's head moth and painted a skull shape on its back. In reality, though, it was a giant peacock moth, a species that only has striped markings in that area of its body. The symbolism of the ant mirrors that of the bee. Like the bee, the ant has established an organized society in which it tirelessly works, meeting present needs and anticipating those of the future. In Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory, the ants invading a pocket watch symbolize decay and death. Dali associated ants with putrefaction, depicting them as insects attracted to decomposition. Echoing the vanitas genre of the 17th century, the presence of these ants on the orange pocket watch, one of the central elements of the piece, emphasizes the fragility of time and the ephemeral nature of existence. This theme of vanitas was dear to Dali, since a few years later, in 1956, he painted Landscape with Butterflies, where two butterflies are depicted against a vast empty landscape, suggesting themes of change and freedom. The butterflies contrast with the barren surroundings, highlighting their ethereal beauty and the dreamlike quality typical of Dali's surrealist style. Joan Miro painted Birds and Insects in 1938, a time of significant political and social upheaval in Europe, particularly with the rise of Franco's regime in Spain. This artwork is often interpreted as an allegory of threatened freedom and a protest against the terror imposed by Franco. The painting features fluid lines and simple stylized representations of these creatures. It perfectly exemplifies Miro's surrealist style, blending abstract forms with organic motifs. In ancient China, scholars admired the cicada's ability to emerge rhythmically after years underground. Along with their capacity to be silent at night and noisy during the day, the cicadas were believed to have supernatural powers like resurrection and regeneration. This belief led to cicadas playing an important role in the funeral rituals of Chinese elites, where jade cicadas were placed under the tongue of the deceased to guide them through rebirth. Over time, the cicada's symbolism shifted from physical to moral, representing virtues like incorruptibility, purity, frugality, and erudition. There was even a position of high-ranking official who was responsible for providing the emperor with cicadas of all colors. Nowadays, the cicada still holds an important place in the hearts of Chinese artists. The originality of Chibaishi lies in the energy of his brushwork. He displayed remarkable audacity in creating the red flowers and ink foliage style, which contrasts vivid colors with the blacks and grays of ink wash painting. The mosquito, characterized by its small size and the cruelty of its bite, is a symbol of aggression. It is a bloodsucker that lands quietly to better surprise its victim and spread the most dangerous diseases. In the Bible, the invasion of mosquitoes is one of the 10 plagues of Egypt. Bernard Bofet's mosquito is a stark and expressive portrayal of the insect, reflecting his signature style of bold angular lines and dramatic contrasts. Bofet's use of dark and ominous colors and sharp forms captures the unsettling nature of the creature, transforming it into a menacing figure. We discussed the negative aspects of the spider earlier. The spider, however, is not without its virtues. The animal endlessly weaves its web to ensure its survival by trapping the insects it feeds on. All the qualities attributed to it, diligent, skillful, deceitful, cruel, stem from this ceaseless labor, a traditionally feminine activity requiring patience and dexterity. Louise Bourgeois frees herself from this traditionally negative symbolism to create her own interpretation. By creating his monumental work, the artist pays tribute to his mother, a weaver, symbolizing maternal strength. Another monumental sculpture tells us a story. Max Stryker, a Canadian artist renowned for his inflatable sculptures, created Dung Beetle in 2005. This large-scale installation features a massive inflatable dung beetle and is constructed from recycled billboard vinyl and powered by electric blowers. The sculpture draws inspiration from Franz Kafka's 1915 novella, The Metamorphosis, which narrates the transformation of a man into a giant insect. Stryker's work encapsulates themes of transformation, isolation, and the human condition. The aerial flight of butterflies and insects inspires graceful contemporary sculptures. Rebecca Horn's Butterfly Machine exemplifies her exploration of movement and transformation. This kinetic sculpture is constructed from metal, wire, and real butterflies. The piece features delicate wings that open and close mechanically, simulating the fluttering of a live butterfly. Horn's work often delves into themes of metamorphosis and the interplay between nature and machinery, inviting viewers to reflect on the fusion of organic life with mechanical constructs. Philippe Pasqua, a contemporary French artist, is recognized for his intense explorations of life and death through striking works. In his series Vanity with Butterflies, Pasqua reinterprets the traditional symbolism of 17th-century vanities by incorporating naturalized butterflies, symbols of transformation and fragility, on a polyester resin skull. Tessa Farmer also uses naturalized insects in her work. She creates pieces made from insect carcasses, plant roots, and other found natural materials, including hanging installations depicting Boschian battles between insects and tiny winged skeletal humanoids. Some artists use living insects as assistants to create works of art. French artist Hubert Duprat is renowned for his unique collaboration with caddisfly larvae, creating intricate artworks that blend natural processes with human intervention. Butterflies are far from being the only insects to go through the cocoon stage. In fact, this is true for more than 80% of insect species. Caddisfly larvae, native to freshwater habitats, have the particularity of constructing protective cases using materials they find in their environment such as sand, twigs, and small stones. In the early 1980s, Duprat began introducing these larvae to environments enriched with gold flakes, pearls, and precious stones. Deprived of their usual building materials, the larvae utilized these luxurious substances to craft ornate, jewel-like cases. John Knuth is a contemporary American artist known for his innovative works that push the traditional boundaries of painting. In his series titled Fly Dung, he uses fly excrement to create abstract compositions on canvas. This unique approach challenges notions of beauty, creative process, and the relationship between art and nature. Knuth attracts flies into a controlled space where they feed on sugar and water. After digestion, the flies are placed on a canvas where they deposit their excrement, forming organic patterns. The use of fly excrement, often associated with decomposition and decay, invites the viewer to reconsider the aesthetic value of what is typically perceived as disgusting or insignificant. This approach questions artistic conventions and highlights the inherent beauty in natural processes. Other artists use insect carcasses or just certain parts as a medium. Known for his controversial performances, Jan Fab has developed an observation and analysis of the world of insects, particularly beetles, which serve as an endless source of inspiration for him. He focuses on the insect that was revered in ancient Egypt. Obsessed with the notion of metamorphosis and the effects of the passage of time on living beings, he creates sculptures from elytra, the wing cases of the exoskeletons of beetles. His most famous work is undoubtedly the ceiling cover of the Hall of Mirrors in the Royal Palace of Brussels, made with 1.4 million beetle elytra. The no less controversial artist Damien Hirst, a founding member of the YBA in the late 1980s, also took a close interest in insects. In Leukemia, the artist conveys the idea of leukemia-affected cells proliferating until they take over the entire canvas. Created using flies and resin on canvas, this work questions the insidious progression of cancer and the battle against the disease. The use of flies, often associated with decay, emphasizes the duality between life and death. Damien Hirst's butterfly stained glass windows are part of his broader exploration of life, death, and transformation, themes that are recurrent in his work. The butterflies, often arranged in symmetrical, kaleidoscopic patterns, are symbolic of fragility, beauty, and metamorphosis. Stained glass, with its historical associations with religious and spiritual imagery, lends these works an additional layer of meaning. Christopher Marley creates impressive mosaics using preserved natural specimens of insect bodies. Also worth mentioning that the artist sources these materials ethically, ensuring that no creatures are harmed for his art. Many specimens are reclaimed from natural history institutions after dying of natural causes. Beyond the aesthetic aspect of his work, the artist aims to raise awareness about species conservation and respect for the natural world. Other artists aim to encourage viewers to engage in introspection and collective awareness. In her installations, Jane Dyer employs thousands of butterflies, often in black, to convey a sense of mourning and introspection. This choice contrasts with the typical vibrant colors, usually associated with butterflies, emphasizing the somber aspects of change and the transient nature of life. Like Hitchcock's birds, insects can become oppressive when they appear in large numbers. The butterflies are arranged in patterns that evoke both chaos and harmony, mirroring the unpredictable yet interconnected events that define our experiences. Rafael Gómez Barros, a Colombian artist, is renowned for his installation Casa Tomada, which features large-scale sculptures of ants. These ants, each nearly a meter long, are crafted from materials such as tree branches, fiberglass, and fabric. Notably, their bodies are constructed by assembling 2 polyester casts of human skulls, symbolizing the human cost of displacement. The installation has been displayed in various locations, including the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, where it occupied public areas from floor to ceiling. Gómez Barros uses the ants to draw attention to migration and forced displacement, symbolizing the industriousness, resilience, and cooperative spirit of people compelled to leave their homes due to political unrest, violence, economic conditions, or climate change. Senegalese artist Henri Sagna gained recognition for his work on mosquitoes, which was exhibited at the Musée Dapper in Paris. His artistic exploration of this malaria-carrying insect aims to raise awareness about the dangers it poses and the heavy toll of the disease, particularly in Africa. At Dakar 2012, the 10th Biennale of Contemporary African Art, Sanya presented The Soul Thief 2, an installation made from repurposed materials such as percale fabric, wire, and perfume bottles. The piece features giant mosquitoes resting on white garments transformed into mosquito nets. Beyond addressing malaria, his work tackles broader themes like injustice, war, and death. While undeniably engaged, Sanya sees this commitment as a necessity rather than a statement. Louis Massai, a London-based street artist, is renowned for his colossal murals that highlight the plight of endangered species, particularly bees. Through his Save the Bees project, Massai adorns urban walls with detailed depictions of bees to raise awareness about colony collapse disorder and the critical role bees play in pollinating plants. His art serves as a visual reminder of the environmental challenges threatening bee populations and emphasizes the broader implications for ecosystems and human survival. Insects have long been depicted and used in art, symbolizing mythological and religious themes. From the Middle Ages to modern times, their representations were codified to reflect deeper meanings. Today, contemporary artists use insects to address societal, political, and environmental issues. The use of live or dead insects also raises ethical questions. While these works are captivating, they challenge us to rethink our perception of insects, raising concerns about exploitation and their vital role in our survival.